Hello and welcome to the Saints FC podcast, and a big happy new year to all you Saints fans out there. I'm hoping that we're going to have a bit of a better 2018 for Southampton than 2017 was, but who knows? The team's going to have to turn some things around pretty quickly if that's going to be the case. As usual, if you want to get in touch with the podcast, you can do so on Twitter at SaintsFC Podcast, or you can email us, saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com, or of course you can leave a review on iTunes or whatever app you get your podcasts from. Want to give a big shout out to one listener, Dan from Tucson in Arizona in the USA, who got in touch with the podcast, tell us he keeps up to date with the Saints from the USA through our podcast and the Ugly Inside YouTube channel. He's been a Saints fan since 2009 and tells me that he fell in love with the Saints and they keep breaking his heart, but he wouldn't trade them in for the Cincinnati Reds or the Miami Dolphins, who he no longer follows because English football is so much better. Seriously, at least 50 minutes of no interruptions. That shit is golden for this 53-year-old. So there we go. The chance of having 50 minutes of uninterrupted television watching the Saints is enough for Dan to fall in love with Southampton. Sometimes those 50 minutes watching the Saints can be pretty torturous, but I get where you're from. I get where you're coming from, Dan. Everyone who listens to this, I think, loves watching the Saints. Of course, do write in if you fancy doing so. We love hearing from you listeners. In this episode, we're very, very fortunate to catch up with the Saints legend, Michael Svensson, sometimes known as Killer. Michael Svensson was a man who spent 7 years at Southampton, forming one of the most formidable central defence partnerships in recent Saints history with Klaus Lundekvar. He was part of the team that helped Saints get to the 2003 FA Cup final, and a man who scored the last ever goal at Manchester City's Main Road, ruining their fairy tale ending for that stadium. He's been voted in the best Saints 11 of all time, and even once managed to dodge a punch from ex-England forward Andy Cole. I get the chance to speak to him for nearly an hour, and we even get the chance to ask some listener questions that some of you sent in at the end of the podcast. So big shout out to Robbie at Saints in France, Vicky, Ewan Campbell, Archers Road End, Alex McInnes, Northern Ireland Saints, Dom, Charlie Hawkins, Stephen the Forest, Ray, Adam Moore, and Les Lamborghini. I get to ask all of your questions either at the end or throughout the show. And for those of you who are wondering what people might have asked Michael Svensson, it is worth listening right to the end because Les Lamborghini has a really rather unusual question that I managed to put to Michael Svensson. Anyway, enjoy this episode of the podcast. Do let us know what you think of it on Twitter or email, all the various channels. You should know them by now. Anyway, let's head over and listen to Michael now. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Saints FC podcast. I am currently on the phone to a little bit of a Saints legend. I have Michael Svensson on the other end of the line. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Hello. I'm fine, thank you. That's a nice introduction. Saints legend, so thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I think it's justified, and maybe we'll explore that over the course of the next few minutes when we speak to you. Mike, I'm just going to give a very quick rundown of your kind of Saints career, just in case there are any new Saints fans that aren't as familiar with you as perhaps I am and perhaps most of the fans are. So you're a man that spent 7 years at Southampton. Forming probably one of the most formidable central defence partnerships in recent Saints history with Klaus Lundekvar. You helped Saints get to the 2003 FA Cup final, and you scored the last ever goal at Manchester City's Main Road. You were once voted in the Daily Mail's best Southampton 11, and you also once managed to dodge a punch from ex-England forward Andy Cole.
Yeah.
In your kind of long Saints career, I mean, you were at the club for 7 years, but you actually only played about 70 times for the Saints. And that was because of a really quite serious long-term injury, and we'll speak about that as well. But I think many, many Saints fans will remember you and remember, reading the news stories. Saints sign Swedish defender called Killer, and I remember this being in the headlines. So you joined Saints from Troyes in France with this nickname Killer. Can you tell us a little bit about signing for Southampton? When did you first find out about the interest, and what persuaded you to join Southampton?
Well, it started when I was playing in France, and I think it was 2001. They had a scout down there and watching one of my games there, and I met him after the game as well, and he was actually a bit concerned about if I would adapt it to the English style of playing, because the French football is more at that time the ball was more on the ground in terms of English football in France. So he was more concerned about all the crosses coming in the box in England, and that I will adapt to that. But in that game he watched down in France, I only had to clear one cross, and but I told him, don't worry about that, I'm used to that in Sweden. So, and that wasn't a problem when I got to England. So yeah.
And did you know much about Southampton before you heard of the interest? Had you watched Premier League football before? Had you seen Saints play before?
Yeah, I did. I grew up with it in Sweden, and always been a big fan of English football. And obviously I heard about Southampton and Letis, obviously. All the great goals he scored, and the nice tight stadium that unfortunately I didn't have the opportunity to play at. But also I knew about Southampton as a smaller club. It's always been struggling, to stay up in the Premiership, but they always managed to do it somehow. So, but the English football has always been something that I really, liked, and that would suit me a lot. But I had a great year in France, and that, developed my football, my skills in a very good way. So I won't exchange that year for 1 year in England, because I developed a lot. So it's a lot of 1-against-1 situation in France, where I have to adapt to the quick style of playing football down there. So that was a good year.
All right, excellent. So, Michael, I wonder if I can take you back in time a bit. So, I'm quite interested in, when you're growing up in Sweden, when did you become really interested in football? And I'm also interested, when did you realise that, when you were a youngster, that you were probably going to be good enough to make it, to the top of the footballing pyramid, to be an international and to play in the Premier League? Yeah,
well, I was actually, when I was about, 15, 16, I was quite fed up with football. That's quite, because I had a lot of different sports I was doing. I was playing badminton and driving motocross and, skiing in the winter, not the downhill, cross-country skiing. Quite boring, but I really enjoyed it. So I was, a lot of my friends was doing really well in football. I was not really doing well when I was about 14, 15, 16. So I was really, really close to, quitting and going for another sport instead. And there was actually this trophy at my club when I was playing, a trophy that the player who trained the most times during a year, you will get your name engraved in this trophy. And that was like, oh, that sounds great. I will have that one next year. So after that year, I trained every session. I trained very hard, and so I managed to get my name on that trophy, and that made a big change for me because I developed a lot that year, and now we're talking. I mean, I don't know what lower leagues, that lower you can get in Swedish football, but I really had that year when I trained a lot, and I found found it back to enjoy playing football again. And so that was when I was 16, I think. I was playing in the first team in my club in Sweden, and then I got an offer to go to a League Two team when I was 17. So I jumped straight on it, and that's been my whole life really, my career. I never had a long-term goals in anything. I would just enjoy. The only long-term I had was that trophy. I had my name written on that one. That was the only long-term I had. After that, I was just quite enjoying, to be in the present and just enjoying training really much. And that's what I started to develop a lot, and found that, maybe this could be something, but I never had a dream about playing in the top league in Sweden. Never had a dream to go abroad to play for, Southampton or Troyes in France, because I just need to stay where I can focus and what I can influence. It's what I do in training every day, and that's helped me a lot. And that's what I try to today when I'm coaching. Try to speak to my players about that. When you get long-term development, if you can focus on each day what you do in training.
Okay, so you might have to correct me on pronunciation here. So, in your kind of early years in the Swedish, was it second division with a team called Värnamo, and then they spotted you, and then you went to Halmstad.
Yes, I went to Halmstad,
and you won the title at Halmstad. So,
yeah.
Where would you say the kind of Swedish league is? What's the standard comparison in Britain?
I mean, the top league in Sweden, if you can compare it to maybe a lower part of championship, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
It's difficult to, but I think there would be somewhere around there, championship teams.
And then after kind of your relative success at Halmstad, you then got spotted by Troyes, moved to France, you developed your game, and then came to Southampton. And when you came to Southampton, there were already quite a lot of Scandinavian players there already, weren't there? And you were already a Swedish playing in the Swedish national side along with Anders Svensson. Did Anders tell you anything about the club before you joined Southampton?
Not really that much. A little bit, obviously we met each other in the national team call-ups, and when I was on my way to Southampton, obviously I spoke to him just about what he enjoyed to play there, and the cities. He said it was great, and but I went there when I signed the contract to have a look around, and I really liked what I saw. New stadium and great training ground. Even they have a new one now. I really like the old style one. So, but the environment just around Southampton and the location in England as well, it's perfect for having a good life outside of football as well.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned that you knew that Southampton were a team that were always fighting against relegation from watching the Premier League when you were younger. Were you happy to kind of go to a club that you thought might be battling relegation, or did they sell a kind of a bigger vision and higher ambitions to you when you came to visit the club?
Well, I never thought about that. I never looked at, I had the opportunity to play in the Premiership, and it doesn't matter if it was a top team or lower league. A team that were struggling to stay up. It didn't matter for me, so I was just happy to come to play in the Premiership, and obviously my job is to make sure we don't concede goals, and I think we managed to do that as well, so in a good way.
Okay, at this point, I'm just going to jump to one of the questions from my listeners, because I think this is actually quite a good one in terms of where we are in our conversation. So one of our listeners, a chap called Alex McInnes, wonders if you believed in your ability on your move to the Premier League. And he's wondering, did you find it surprising how quickly you were able to adapt to the Premier League and be able to cope with, what's advertised as the strongest league in the world?
No, not really. I'm quite, I don't know. I don't think really much about that, because when I moved to France, well, you think about when you get older and wiser, and I try to analyze, why I did so well. Because in France, I had the manager was very keen to bring me to his club in France, and so he was traveling up to Sweden, in a private jet, and to meet me and to introduce, what he was expecting from me, and when I came to France to start playing, I remember the first few games I didn't perform very well. I was like struggling to adapt, and but I had a chance to have a few bad games, but I was still playing the next game, so that made me a better player, and have the confidence from the manager. It doesn't matter if you have one or two average game, you will still play the third game. So that made a big difference for me. You have confidence, obviously, and what I was doing. And when I got to Southampton, I was starting on I'm struggling a little bit in the beginning as well. We had a pre-season tour. We played at, I think it was Oxford United, and I remember I was about to deal with a cross, and Paul Jones came out and he shouted keeper, and I didn't get used to that, and we just collide and the ball went in the net or something like that. That's just, I remember I had struggling to adapt to the English style, and that's just normal, I think. But I didn't think about it, and it didn't really bother me, and I was quite confident that it will, I will adapt to it and start playing well again. So I just, I'm quite relaxed about it, and today I think players tend to think too much about I have to perform well, I have to do this and that, and I think that puts too much pressure on them, because they just have to trust on their ability. And that's the hardest thing, I think, to do as a player, to have that kind of self-confidence.
Okay, so we'll get into the start of your Saints career. So once after pre-season, we had Liverpool, Chelsea, and Tottenham Hotspur, I think, as the first 3 games of the season, which is a pretty tough start. And you actually got sent off, didn't you, at White Hart Lane? Was it your second or third game for Saints?
Yeah, third maybe.
Yeah,
I was came on at Liverpool away, I think, when Klaus got injured.
Yeah,
came on as a substitute, and then I think it was Bolton. Then I started my first game, I think. I can't remember. Many years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got sent off against Spurs. Yeah.
And I think that was for a handball as well, which is quite interesting, because I think you managed to put your feet through a couple of the Spurs players throughout the game, but it's the handball that you got caught for. What I find interesting about that season is that we had a bit of a slow start, but then we had Tranmere Rovers in the League Cup, a game which we won 6-1, and that was when you got your first Saints goal. Do you remember that at all?
I think it was probably one of the most beautiful goals ever scored at St. Mary's. No, no, not really. I think it was a rebound probably. I was there and just shoved it in. I think it was. I can't remember. Bad memory, sorry. But it was great to score first goal for the Saints, and I remember Klaus, it took him, 250 or 300 games before he scored his first goal. So I gave him a few sticks for that.
Yeah, was he quite upset about you coming in and scoring so quickly then?
Yeah, it was quite funny.
It's interesting. So I was looking back over your kind of career stats and the games that you played for Southampton, in preparation for this interview, and I think you pretty much only scored goals in really thrilling games. Because obviously you're not a big goal scorer being in the centre of defence, but you would come up for corners and stuff like that. One kind of quite funny game, which I wonder if you can remember, was against Fulham. And it was when they were playing at Loftus Road, wasn't it? Queen's Park Rangers ground. And you managed to score twice in this game, one at each end. And what do you remember about that game?
Well, the first one was a really hard cross, low cross from the right hand side, and I tried to get my feet away, but I couldn't, and bouncing behind Antti in the goal. But that was they were leading 2-1. No, I think they were leading 2-1, and it was we had a corner. There was overtime, and Antti came up. And the ball went all over our centre half, and he came to Antti, and he just controlled it on his chest and half volleyed it in the bar, and I was there to just head the goal back. So that was great. I met Antti in the last summer, and we went to a concert, and we spoke about this, and Antti just relaxed about everything, and he said, that's just me hitting the bar, just like that. So that was great. Nice memory, though. We managed to get a point from that game. So
I think that was kind of one of those comical games, wasn't it? And it seemed quite fitting that the goal would come from our goalkeeper having a shot at pinging off the crossbar going, and then you finishing it, one of our central defenders, I think in the last minutes as well. So I'm going to share my favourite Michael Svensson memory with you, and then perhaps after that you can share some of your biggest kind of highlights at Southampton. But the game which I always think about when I think of Michael Svensson is in the FA Cup third round, and it's the season when we made it to the final, and we'd played Tottenham Hotspur I think 3 days earlier in the league and won 1-0, and then we had them again in the FA Cup. And I remember travelling down there with my dad and my brother and a couple of friends, and I decided to bet £1 on you scoring the first goal at 50-1. And I think, was it a corner or a free kick, maybe about 10-15 minutes in, gets whipped in, bounces around a bit, and then you put it in and you won me 50 quid.
Yeah, amazing. I met so many people who won some money on me scoring that goal, so it was great. I was man of the match as well. I have to go up in one of the suites up there, and there were many happy people there. I made happy that way because I scored a goal, so that was great. But nice memory. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, the game was absolutely sensational. So we beat Tottenham 4-0. I think we were 1-0 up at half time. In the second half, I think Southampton played almost as good as I've ever seen them play. It was that good. How did the players feel after that? I mean, you were started to kind of make some pretty good progress in the league. You'd strung a few results together. We had a bit of a rivalry with Tottenham because of Glenn Hoddle leaving and then Dean Richards leaving as well. How special did it feel?
No, it was fantastic because we had this feeling that, bring on anyone, because I spoke about confidence earlier. We had a great squad, a great manager who made sure we didn't relax for sure. But we were having a great confidence, and we enjoyed playing together. That's the main ingredients for success. And so, I mean, we knew we were going to beat Tottenham. I was so confident, but they won't score, we will score, and simple as that. And But I remember, the team we had and the feeling that we can beat anyone here at St. Mary's, and that was fantastic. So one of the best memories, obviously, for me as well, playing that game.
Yeah. And what other kind of good memories do you have from your time at Saints then?
Well, the whole FA Cup journey we had 2002, 2003, because I knew that I heard about the FA Cup, that it was special for everybody involved, the fans, the players, and but then when you experience it for real, you understand why. It's an atmosphere that builds up in every game. It doesn't matter if you play Tranmere or you play Arsenal in the final. It's buzzing, and it's a fantastic environment around these games, and all the way up to the final. The whole journey in the FA Cup was fantastic, and give me goosebumps thinking about it. My family was there, both my missus' family and my family was there at both the semi-final and the cup final, and that's great memories, and I will think about for a long time. Well, but playing for Southampton, it's we had the first year was really good, and we had a successful couple of years there, and we did well. And up till my injury starts, I had some great memories, and even after that, there was nice memories, especially the fans. The support I had from the fans during my injuries was amazing, and obviously the club supported me as well. That's amazing. I can't remember how many times I heard a question, "How is your knee doing?" And I never got fed up with it, because that means that they were caring, and that's amazing.
Yeah, I guess now's a good time to talk about your injury. So we did have two very good seasons, 2002 to 2003, and 2003 2004. And then in 2004, I think it was at Fratton Park during the warm up, you got injured.
Yeah.
What caused the injury? I mean, it seems quite amazing that an injury in a warm up could end up having such severe consequences.
Yeah, that's my calf that went during the warm up. Because 97, my first game with Halmstad, when I signed from Värnamo, I've tackled the biggest guy in Halmstad. We had a 50-50 challenge, and I snapped my cruciate ligament in that situation, and my posterior cruciate ligament, and you didn't operate on that kind of injury at that time, and so I managed to train my knee up, and after 1 year I got back on the pitch, and it got really stronger, and I think it's when you don't operate on it, there's always going to be some instability in the knee that eventually it will burst, and I think that time at Fratton Park, when I got injured because my calf went, it was a time that my knee was getting weaker because I got injured because of that, and I think that's the reason my knee went.
Yeah, and then so you missed the whole of the next season, really, which was the season when Southampton got relegated, and I've spoken to a lot of fans who think basically the reason we got relegated is because our central defence wasn't right in that season. And everyone who I've spoken to thinks there's no way we would have got relegated if Michael had been at the centre of defence. How frustrating was it to be watching from the sidelines and thinking that you could kind of change the course of history almost, I suppose, for Southampton? It's
flattering when people say that, but it's at the same time, it's hard to be on the side. That's what's always been motivating me to get back, and I never stopped believing that I wouldn't go back on the pitch, and I showed myself and people that it's possible, and even if you have the most horrific injuries, and it's all about what's in your head really. If you manage, to do all the hard work that's you have to put up with when you're injured. But obviously it was very, very hard and heartbreaking when the team got relegated and you can't really do anything about it in terms of playing. It's difficult, but that's life and that's football. You need to bounce back again, and obviously it was very difficult for the club at that time to do that in terms of instability in many levels.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on from your injury, and we'll talk about maybe some slightly happier things. First of all, I'd love to know what your first impressions were of Gordon Strachan. What did you make of him, and were you even able to understand him when you first met him?
No. I just said yes. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem. No, it was quite. My first impression was that when I came in the summer 2002 to sign the contract. This is a story. I end up. Gordon said, "Yeah, we're going to have some few runnings." So I trained 2 sessions. We're going to do some runnings, and it would be great if you can join that. Yeah, of course. So we got changed at the stadium, and then got on a bus to go to the sports center, the community with the golf courses, and we did some running there on the track and field. On the bus, there's another story. This is quite embarrassing, really, but I sat next to. I told you that I knew something about Southampton. I knew about Metalitis, but I didn't know anything about Franny Benali, so I ended up next to him in the bus. And I asked him, how long have you played here? Yeah, and the answer was my whole life. So that was embarrassing. And I met Franny not long ago, and I told him about this. And Franny is the nicest guy in the world, and he just laughed at it. That's another story. But Gordon Strachan, the running we had for those 2 days was, the 2 hardest running I ever did. So I was knackered going back to Sweden, signing the contract. But that was great. Just a great start of knowing Strachan. That's what's gonna happen in the future. But, yeah.
And what's he like as a manager? Because I would say he's, in terms of the way Saints played, he's definitely got to be one of the best managers we've had, certainly in the last, in recent decades. The way we played in that FA Cup final run was really quite brilliant. I mean, how did he get the Saints players and the Saints team clicking so well, playing such attractive football, and ultimately getting the good results that he managed to get for a good couple of seasons?
Well, I will describe him like this. He was he knew what's this all about, to play football at the highest level. Obviously, he did it when he was up to 40 or 41 or 42. So he was very, keen on, that you prepared for the season. You are fitness-wise, both obviously physical and mentally. So he made sure that we were there, and we weren't the club that had made the biggest signings and spent a lot of money on players, but he took the most out of he made the most out of the players that he had to that he can develop, and he was also for me, it's like I had a lot of managers that was quite difficult to understand. He was, in terms of how do you want to play, he made it quite simple. you know, we had Beats obviously and Brett Ormond up front, and their strength is, you know, running behind defenders and making an item for them, and that's quite simple football. You know, make sure you get the ball to them, and then we press them high and we win the second balls, and then we're aggressive, and we have players who can do that as well, and we score a lot of goals like that, and because we had two great strikers that we need to feed balls to, and so I tried to think about how his tactical approach was for the games, and it was quite easy for us to understand what he wanted from us, and how we should win next game. So that's I think it's a very good way to get a team winning.
And do you take any of Gordon's methods into your own career now? Because I know you're managing in Sweden now. Is he an influence on your management style?
Yeah, yeah. All the coaches I had has been influenced me, both obviously positive and negatives, and that's what you need to do. You learn from the best and you learn from the worst. And he was, like I said, about to be prepared as a manager, to be prepared as a player. It's very important that you preparation is everything, to make sure that everything when you go out on the pitch and the referee starts the game, you're gonna end up winning the game. It's about be prepared for everything, and that's why I've developed a lot as well as a manager.
Okay, brilliant, Michael. I'm going to get into some of our listener questions now. Okay, so
yeah.
I'm going to try and kind of abscond responsibility here. So if you don't like the questions, blame the listeners. But yeah, there we go. So the first one is from Robbie, who's at Saints in France on Twitter, and he wants to know which Saints captain was the toughest on the pitch to play for.
Toughest? No, Chris Martin. I liked him a lot. He was. I'm not sure he was captain the whole season. I don't think so. I think Doddsy was the captain, and mostly Doddsy had a few injuries. So, but Chrissy was the captain. I remember toughest. I mean, he was quite tough when he was playing. Very skillful though. He was one. I think it was the semi-final against Watford away. We had a. It wasn't an arguing. That we were just we approached each other, and I took my hands around his neck, and he told me, "Take your fucking hands off, Michael." I was like, "Oh yeah, I took it off right away." I didn't mean that was not I tried to intimidate him or anything like that. It's just like a half of a hug.
Yeah.
But he did enjoy it. So he was quite tough, and I took my hand away quite straight away.
I can't really imagine you being scared of anyone, Michael. You know, being 6'2" and
no, respectful.
Yeah. So this next question is from Vicky, and she asks, "When are you going to come and manage in the UK?" And she also adds that she loves you, and you are only second to Franny Benali in her eyes.
Oh my God! Yeah, managing. I'll start with the first question. Flattering from the second question. So, first question, I would love to come to England to managing and coaching. I need to do some work here in Sweden to get my confidence and my knowledge in managing. I do all my mistakes here in Sweden and make sure I come to England and not doing any mistakes.
So is that the kind of direction of your career now, football management? You've had a bit of a taste with the Halmstad under-19s. You're now managing for, is it Vinberg?
Yeah.
Yeah. In League Two in Sweden. When I was speaking to Richard Chaplow, another ex-Southampton player, he's quite keen on getting into management, but he says it's very difficult to break into the kind of management club. So each manager has like his team of coaches that he takes with him, and he thinks it's quite difficult to kind of break into that mold. Do you worry about that in terms of your ambition, or do you think, as long as you do a really good job in Sweden, you'll get noticed and the opportunities will start to present themselves?
Well, I understand what you're saying. It's difficult to get into, the teams around a team, really. And but what can you do? You need just to do your work, do your education, and be very, solid in what you're doing, and make sure you start. You have to be really. What do you say when you can't find the English word at the moment? Quite humble about it when you start. I'm that. I try to be that. I had opportunity to be a manager in the first team in Sweden, or assistant manager, but I turned it down because I wasn't really. I have done it, and when I did it, I didn't enjoy it because I felt that I didn't have the experience to do it. So I'd rather go down a few levels, start with the kids under 19 and work with them, and developed my style and my philosophy there, and then take next step to managing a League Two side that I really, really enjoy at the moment. So I think it's very important that you do this in this kind of way and work yourself up instead of jumping on anything. And then if something happens, manager gets sacked, you get sacked as well, and the drop is quite steep from that if you're not ready for it.
Yeah, and I suppose kind of in your time managing in Sweden. One of our listeners calls himself Archers Road, and he asks, are there any young Swedish players that we should be looking out for who might be breaking into the mould of the superstar in the future?
We have, he's playing he's playing for the Swedish national team now. It's his name is Forsberg. He plays in Leipzig in Germany.
Oh yeah,
he's a really, really good player. I think he will. He's still young, and he will develop and become a really, really good player. So that's nice player to look out for. We actually a player we sold to from Halmstad to West Ham. They had Haksabanovic. He's not in the first team squad. He's in the squad, but he's not on the bench at the moment. He's a young player. He's only 19 years old, and he will develop as well, and I think become a good player because he's just a natural football player. Both feet on the ground, and so I think he will wait for him. He needs to adapt to the English style, and he will become a good player as well, I think.
Yeah. Ewan Campbell says, was there anyone in the Saints team that you didn't get on with?
No, not really. I'm quite, I think, easy to have as a teammate. No, can't think of anyone really. Obviously, you speak to you have different cliques in teams. That's where you have, and had some great players that I enjoy sitting down and speak to. Paul Telfer, great guy, and also spoke to Scandinavians, and try to not. But that's natural. When you're from the same area, you tend to drag to each other and hang around a lot more than you had with maybe the English guys. But I've had a good relationship with most of them.
So did you and Anders ever head off down to IKEA to go for the Swedish meatballs, and if you're feeling homesick.
No, IKEA wasn't in Southampton when we lived there, so we have to go to London to do that.
Okay, maybe a bit of a stretch. And the Northern Ireland Saints Sporting Club, they want to know, which away stadiums did you most enjoy playing at?
Away stadium. I enjoyed. I think I only played it twice or once. Ellen Road, when we played Leeds away. We had a great game there. I think we won 1-0. That was great. And also Everton away, when we played them. Goodison Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I had a crack in there, and that was live on Sky Sports as well, and I was voted the man of the match. And I still have the bottle of champagne at home here. I haven't opened it yet. So.
Oh, really? Yeah, you're saving it for a special occasion.
Yeah, I don't think it would taste that well.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I mean, quite interestingly though, you hold a record of scoring the last ever goal at Main Road, Manchester City's old ground. Have Manchester City ever invited you back since then?
No, I haven't. Can't believe that. And also, it's actually the last goal ever scored at Peter Schmeichel, the goalkeeper, and he's Danish.
Oh, yes.
Danish and Swedish, it's like Southampton, Portsmouth. That's really Vondra. No, that was a great day. Most of all, it was because we managed to end up 8th in the league instead of 12th, I think. And that was we played really well there, and we won 1-0, and I scored the winning goal. And last game of the season, and then we have the cup final to look forward to.
Yeah,
2 weeks time after that, and it's a fantastic time of the year.
And you didn't feel bad about ruining the fairy tale finish for the Manchester City fans, because as Southampton fans, we had the fairy tale finish with the Dell, with Mathieu Letitia scoring the last goal in a win against Arsenal.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, I really enjoy you ruin the party.
Yeah. Okay. Don wants to know, what part of Southampton did you live in, and what did you like about the city?
Actually, I lived in a few places. I've got first an apartment before I got my first house. My first house was not at Marshall Square, just very close from the old the Dell, where that used to be.
Yeah.
So I was on historic grounds close to where I lived, and I was walking. I've been walking around that area where they build flats around the site where the old Dell used to be, and then I lived in Brownhams, just outside of Southampton, close to the training ground on the way there.
And did you ever socialise in Southampton as well? Did you go out with the players to the pubs or restaurants, or? Yeah, a little bit. We went out a few times after home games. We had a meal, and if the family was over, we went out for a meal and then a few drinks, a few occasions. But when I moved to Marshall Square, this was a whole new area where a new build, so there was a lot of new, people moving in there, and we had the opportunity to meet some very nice people that we still have contact with, that we last summer went to see, and so it's nice to meet people outside of the football as well, very nice people, and so I'm very happy about that. I didn't just connect with football players, because they never stay in one place. Yeah. And who's who's the best player that you played with at Southampton?
Well, Wayne Bridge was fantastic when I came, and then he obviously left for Chelsea. He and James Beattie was the best player. And then obviously when Gareth Bale and Theo Walcott came through, and see where they ended up. And Gareth Bale, obviously, he's now playing in Real Madrid, and when he was playing in Spurs, he was fantastic, I think. Also for us, when he was 16, he took free kicks, called him in, and he was running, he was playing left back, and he was overlapping, he was showing this fantastic ability. So, yeah.
Okay. So we've nearly got to the silly questions now from our listeners, but
you haven't.
First one, I wanted. Do you watch Saints at all? And I wonder if have you had a chance to see Virgil van Dijk, and what do you think about him? You know, being a central defender, do you think he's as good as the hype?
No, not really. To be honest, I've been watching. I saw the goal they conceded last night or yesterday.
Yeah.
I think with those two centre half, they should have cleared that ball, and I think it's quite soft. It's a good cross, but I think they should have dealt with that cross better. But no, about him, about the situation with his contract, I think it's just lack of disrespect towards the contract, obviously, in the club. And obviously now he managed to don't think about it when he stopped playing, and I'm not sure he's playing that well that he used to be. That's my view on this.
Yeah, I would agree with you that I don't think he's been as good this season as he was before he got his injury last season, and I don't know whether that's a mental thing or if it's the recovery from the injury or what. But you know, and I agree. I think the goal we conceded yesterday, I could see Michael Svensson getting his head to that, and that, you know, going right out towards the centre circle, and, you know, there we go, we would have won 1-0.
Yeah, that would be easy. I love those kind of games when there were cross coming in, there was pressure on, and that's what, you know, was my strength, and clearing the ball and reading the game in terms of you know, preventing the team from scoring.
Okay, right. So you're ready for the slightly more silly questions now. Okay. So Ray says, did you ever clash with Gordon Strachan, seeing as you were both fiery redheads?
No, he could clash with. He clashed with the whole team during halftime once. So yeah, because he had something to say about every single play in halftime, something negative. And so it's quite funny that he managed to come up with 11 things.
Yeah.
11 things, like constructive things as well. He went through all the plays, and then he came to me. He just said, "Michael, panic," and then he went on that he thought I was panicking in the game when I get the ball, and that was quite funny afterwards. But that time I panicked. Okay, I think I need to calm down when I get the ball and don't just hoof it away. Other than that, never had any problems with him. I think we probably had a better relationship when we both had ginger. So.
Yeah, sticking together.
We understand each other.
Another question here. Is Anders Svensson actually the David Beckham of Sweden?
Oh, no. I mean, Anders, we are good friends, and we try to meet up with families, and now he's not. He's always been good looking, Anders, and still is working for Swedish television now, and I'm a manager, so it speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No, Anders is a great guy, and he's done really well, and he had a great career, long career, and I highly respect him.
Yeah, he scored some great goals as well. I mean, I remember a particularly great one for Sweden in the World Cup, but probably my favourite was in that 4-0 versus Tottenham. He scored a fantastic goal in that one as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he scored.
Okay. Adam Moore wants to know what your favourite ABBA song is.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, that's what comes up in my mind.
Okay. Are there any other Swedish bands we should look out for? I mean, I wonder if maybe Adam should be expanding his knowledge of Swedish music.
Swedish music? Oh my God. No, I don't think so. No, I can't think of any Swedish band.
No, I think my favourites are a band called The Knife, which
The Knife.
Yeah, they're quite experimental and electronic, and well, they had a couple of really good albums, and then they went a little bit too experimental for my liking. But yeah, I enjoyed their first couple of albums. I'm not familiar with them.
Not Michael Svensson, no.
And where did you get the nickname Killer from?
It was in Sweden, and actually, my nickname in Sweden was the Murderer, and it was in Halmstad. Actually, it was Freddy Ljungberg, who played in Arsenal, who came up with it, because I was quite unpolished when I arrived in Halmstad from Värnamo. I was kicking players all over the place, and was playing players who didn't want to continue training until I left the training, because they were I was quite mean. But you can get away with a lot. That today I probably will get sent off a few more times than I did when I played in Southampton, because all the too many referees, I think, and cameras everywhere. So
yeah,
feels like I played in the Stone Age, but it's not that long ago. But, it was Freddy who came up with it and said the Murderer, and obviously it's another killer. Murder is not really the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if Andy Cole would probably agree with Freddy Ljungberg, wouldn't he?
No. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, managed to get away with that one. So, I mean, I don't know, for those of the listeners who don't know what I'm talking about, can you describe what happened in your incident with Andy Cole?
It was Blackburn, I think. I can't remember exactly what was happening, and I think we just started, grabbing each other and punching, and I think, and he got sent off, and I thought I was getting a red card as well, but I can't remember exactly what was happening there.
Yeah, I mean, my recollection of it, I think you gave him a little bit of maybe a push, or maybe even a little bit of a punch, and he retaliated and got caught, and you stayed on the pitch, and we won the game. So there we go.
I'm cleverer than him.
Yeah. Okay, and so this is the last question from our listeners, and it's this is definitely the most silly question. It's from a man called Les Lamborghini, and he says, would you prefer forks for arms or spoons for legs?
Forks for arms.
I think they would be more useful, wouldn't they?
Yeah, you have to eat. Obviously, you can't eat soup all the time, so I think fork will be better. Obviously, right. Then you need a knife as well.
Yeah, I think there's certainly more versatility with having forks for arms, doesn't there? And I can't imagine that walking on spoons or playing football is going to be particularly easy with spoons for legs.
I think I maybe had spoons for legs. I wasn't that skillful in terms of passing the ball, so that would work for me. Spoons.
Yeah. Okay. And so I suppose last thing really before we wrap up, you're now manager at Vimbergs in the Swedish second division. If people want to follow your career, how do we watch Vimbergs? How are you getting on with them?
Well, I had just finished off my first season in middle of October. We had the last game, and now it's just off-season planning for pre-season that starts in January. So it's signing players coming in and out. That's what's I'm up about at the moment. so preparing for next season. In Sweden, we have the pre-season from January, 8th of January, and the season starts in first week in April. So it's quite long compared to the English pre-season, when you have maybe 6-week pre-season. Instead, we have 3.5 months. So I really enjoy this, and try to be, like I said before, preparing to be prepared in January when we start again, and make sure we take advantage of every training session that we have ahead of us. My players are not professional. They have works, and some of them, studying, go to school, and so I'm professional, obviously, as a coach. But so it's always difficult to have players in for 4 times a week plus the game on the weekends, and they have a long day working as a construction or builder, whatever they do. And but they enjoy it, and we had a good season. We end up 5th in the league this year, and we're gonna make sure we try to be in the top next season as well.
Looking for promotion, maybe?
Yes.
All right, brilliant. Okay, well, Michael, I've had you on the phone for an hour now, which is very, very generous of you to spend that time with me.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you very, very much for joining us on the Saints FC podcast. Thank you to all of our listeners who sent in questions. I hope you enjoyed listening to Michael's answers to those. And I suppose it's a bye-bye from me and Michael. Any message for the Saints fans before you head off?
No, just like I said, my greatest time in football is my years in Southampton, and I'm really, really, emotional about thinking about the years I had in Southampton, because obviously we had a few good years in the start, but also the years when I had troubles with my injuries. I had fantastic support from all the support, and that means a lot to me, and that's something I will cherish forever. So thanks a lot.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.